Welcome, everybody, to Dueling Aces, Monday, August 23rd. And our guest galore this evening, we have Bodine and Joe and Mr. Big D himself, Mr. Manning. Welcome on in.
Thanks for having me.
As always, not a problem at all. For those of you who are inquiring, Bodine and Joe have a show on Wednesday nights that I actually happened to come across a few weeks ago and was just as much as entertaining as we are. And they definitely have their hilarity. They have their own hilarity. They have their own folks who love to turn around and troll just like we have our trolls. It's awesome. Absolutely awesome. So I definitely wanted to share some love and have them involved in our fantasy football show tonight. And I definitely would love to kick off and start with Joe and ask her about how her final grouping of her 16-team draft and how you felt even being in that many teams.
So I'm going to clue you in that, first of all, I'm a jack of all trades and gigging Bodine's sidekick, and he's kind of brought me into the sports arena. This is my first draft, my first fantasy football draft. I am not a football expert. I am a Bodine fan, and that's why I'm in this gig. And so I was a novice going in. The gentlemen who support me in Coast Coast me a lot of advice before the draft. They didn't even tell me I needed an app, so I was way behind. But once the draft got going, luckily, George, I'm going to give you a shout out. You saw me struggling on air and guidance behind the scenes, and I did smash it of the players on my own, but then you really helped me pull it out in the end. So it was pretty monumental, I think that. But I scored Tom Brady. I don't know why the guys let that go. I got Gronk, and I got a few other great players. But it was certainly a daunting task. But I'm going to be ready for next year, and I think they're a little worried that I picked up some players that they probably wanted. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see how I'm going to do.
Yeah, your lineup is not bad at all. Brady, Cook, Mixon, Justin Jefferson, Malcolm Brown, Gronk, Higbee, the Bears defense, and Zerline. That was kind of the other weird thing, is that it forced you guys to take two kickers and two defenses, kind of thing. Hurts, Evans, Callaway, and St. Brown. Looks like you got a couple of there too.
Well, I'll tell you why, because there was some behind-the-scenes rivalry from last year's trade, and one of the gentlemen who was running it put those limitations on prevent his run from have too many running backs. So he's the one who imposed those limitations. So after the in-house squabbling, once we got off air, and it made for some fun antics, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
You gotta love the in-house antics.
Yeah.
I will say one thing about your draft. I love that Tyler Higbee pick. I picked him in all my drafts.
That actually looked like a really solid team for a 16-team league.
It really is.
Yeah. And that's
where'd you pick? What spot did you have?
What spot did I have? I'm not even sure because I hopped in late, but I believe I was number 8 or 9 out of 16.
That's actually a good spot because you're kind of in that middle. I'd hate to be number 1 in that draft.
What spot I was pretty far back. I know I wasn't.
Long way.
Yeah, that's the Higbee. That was one I mentioned to her. I said she definitely would love to turn around and get Higbee because, we know Stafford loves his tight ends, so it's not a bad pickup.
So, hey, Bodine, this is a 16-team league. How are you doing? Is it just top 4 or 5 make it? How are you doing your playoffs? I assume you're not doing divisions. Could be wrong.
Well, gentlemen, I hate to disappoint you, but I am not a fantasy football guy.
Okay.
I wrote a book about diversity and inclusion through sports. I talk about how team sports helps bring everyone together from different socioeconomic backgrounds. I wrote my memoir because of my experience in college. I played college football. I started my football career at the oldest HBCU in the country, which is Cheney University here in the suburbs of Philadelphia. And then I transferred and graduated and finished my football career at Villanova. So I love sports just like you guys, but I just don't play fantasy football. But I'm happy to talk sports all day long. And if my co-host wants any insight during the season, I will gladly help her out. But she's got to crawl before she walks, right? So she's got to learn, like everybody else who started playing fantasy football. She's got to learn the mistakes she made. You learn from your mistakes. So she hasn't called and asked for any advice, but she's throwing herself in it. She's trying to learn it. So I'm here to be her support, a moral support, mental support, emotional support throughout the season. But our show, the Bo and Joe Show, we cover sports and we get a little bit deeper than the X's and O's of sports. We offer the deeper insight from a parenting perspective, from a mom's perspective, from a single dad's perspective, from a former athlete's perspective, and we try to make our show as positive as possible and look at the bright side. But we also talk about current events and things that are, in the out there trending. So, but I'm happy to be here, and I'll still talk sports.
Oh, cool.
And
Sounds good.
And that is the Olympic take you guys had a few weeks ago was one of the
I think
very impressive.
our focus is simple.
No, go ahead, Joe.
Thank you. I think that's our mentality and our genre is that we're really trying to look at the societal effect of sports and how all functions societal in America. And I think Paul had a point he speaks about in his book about one of the best opportunities was when we entered summer camps. I'm not going to tell a story better than he does, but at that vantage point, how instrumental sports were in changing his perception when he saw children play together at golf. That's what we look at. We look at the curtains, how they react to sports, and then we do delve into the stats a little bit. Bo digs in deep, especially when it comes to the NFL. I'm a little bit more on the sidelines. I'm more like the water girl in our episodes, but we dig in when it impacts society and that type of thing. But Bo's schooling me, and I didn't call you, Bo, because the draft was at midnight. I didn't, luckily it was still up, but I didn't want to call on you at that hour.
Very cool.
Well, as a writer, I'm up till 2 or 3 in the morning, so I'm always up.
That's a hell of a fire to be thrown into for your first draft ever, 16 team.
At midnight.
Yeah.
Shit, I need 12 team drafts. I couldn't imagine a 16.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well,
the rest, yeah.
Go ahead.
The rest of the network, they're on the Pacific Coast, so it's only 9 out there. I'm on the East Coast, so yeah. So they weren't coming.
Well, we did have our trial and error of a 20 team one year, but again, it was just 1 year. Looks like we got some. No, I was gonna say the Cam Newton COVID news. I guess we'll bring Mr. Belichick up. Might as well bring him up now. Let me bring him right on up. Soon we'll bring Billy.
Yeah, what's going on with is that new news about Cam?
Yeah, this is today.
Somebody has to show that they're better than that. That player has to be unavailable, right? And that's the way it is at every position. It's not unique to any position. That's the way it is across the board. So you get players, that have an opportunity to gain playing time, regardless of who else is on the roster or what else is on the roster, by their performance. And that's the only way I know to do it. So that's the way I'm going to do it.
So, in other words, Bill isn't saying what he's saying is that it sounds like he's leaning towards Mac Jones if Mac Jones gets off his butt and does the work.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely aimed directly at Mac Jones. That was hey, kid, you got a shot. Now's your chance. You got 5 days.
Yeah. That's exactly what that was. Good old Bill.
So what was the news that Cam refuses to get tested for COVID? I guess I couldn't see the text.
No, there was apparently there was he got tested at a Patriots approved facility, which was outside the New England area. And according to the agreement that the league made with the Players Association, because he's outside the area, that immediately kicked in a 5-day waiting period before he could rejoin the team. So he literally can't practice with the team until 5 days goes by and he tests negative the whole time.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think he's going back to that testing site.
Yeah.
What?
I will say it's Cam, so it don't surprise me.
It was a team approved site. So
Right.
Well, in all else fails, we know he was probably still pretty damn well dressed, regardless of COVID or not.
Yeah. Did the Patriots fail to tell him? Did he fail to tell the facility he was going to? And the Patriots like, well, you got to wait 5 days or something? Like, where's the miscommunication in that? It's a miscommunication.
I mean, it's the Patriots, so I'm assuming they were perfectly okay with him doing it. And then the league came around and said, wait a minute. No, he's got to sit. It's like, you can't just be doing this, Bill. It's preseason. We're going to stop this right now.
Hold on. So the league put out the policies and procedures, and the Patriots decided to do their own thing.
Shocking.
Wow.
Bill Belichick.
The Belichick way.
Yeah. Amazing.
Well, I mean, at least we nipped this in the bud in the preseason. Take care of it now.
So that makes sense. The window is now open for my hometown, Jacksonville, Florida quarterback to start for the Patriots. Pretty darn nice.
There you go.
Like that.
So are we saying we could draft Mac Jones, and if we have drafts coming up in the next week?
Go for it. I'm all for it. I'm surprised he hasn't been picked up in the MIA's league yet.
I actually surprised a lot of people because I had my draft last night, and the guys we have this thing going on. There was some shit that went down last year, so they started this whole fiasco that was Chubbgate and this and that. So they were talking shit in the chat that we have, and they're like, "Oh yeah, if you get the first pick, it's fucking rigged." I don't set up Yahoo. I don't do it. I get into the chat and it says you're picking first, and I said, "Hey, you guys ran your mouth. You jinxed it. You made it into existence. Don't get mad at me because I got the first pick." And so sure enough, I took my boy, what's number one pick? I got to take CMC all day, every day. And then I know I pissed a lot of Ohio State fans off because, you know, I'm a big
Me?
Ohio State hater, but I
Yeah,
took Justin Fields.
You
He
took
So now
took him right before I'm about to take him. I'm like, I'm about to take him in that round. I'm like, son of a, really? You don't like Buckeyes?
Clint is all up in my DMs like, trade me Fields. I'm like, we'll work something out maybe.
It's kind of weird that you know, the Michigan guys have that little connection, because I was pissed when Suds took him right ahead of me in the MIAC
Well, I think
league.
because I've said from the beginning, like, as much as I hate that school down in Columbus, that I think he has the opportunity to be the best one that has come out of Ohio State to be the quarterback. I really do.
I agree with you on that. Not just because
That's a
I'm a
first.
huge Buckeye fan, but yeah, you and I agree. And
Right.
College
Let's be
football
honest,
is rare, but yeah.
Andy Dalton.
And-
Most Ohio
and
State
Fields-
quarterbacks suck in the NFL. He has the best shot to be legitimately a good quarterback.
And we have a small sample size, but he looked damn good.
Yeah.
Until he got his head ripped off.
Right.
Yeah, it was so illegal.
Maybe that was that because of his comment about the NFL being too slow? Maybe they were like, "Here, let me speed it up for you."
Yeah, that's a bad thing to say. It's a rough.
Welcome to the NFL, kid.
And listen, if you think about over the years, every time a quarterback makes a statement like that,
They get railed.
that quarterback usually gets laid out by a veteran or someone looking to make a name for themselves if they're a rookie or a second-year player, because that's insulting, right?
And they
That's
should get laid out.
insulting. You know, so you don't. I mean, that's just something you don't do. You know, we've all seen that movie before, right? So if we've seen that movie before, let's hope he's seen that movie before. And if he hasn't, he's now seen it in the next day film study, right?
Yeah.
Let's just hope we don't get like the Vietnam flashbacks after one hit in the NFL.
Yeah.
And get the happy feet. Yeah.
Was that slow enough for you? How you feeling?
Right.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah, it took his helmet off. Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
It did.
Exactly. So.
Yeah.
Question is though, the only thing that I think is going to hurt Fields is the Matt Nagy offense.
Yeah, Matt
That
Nagy
dude-
do a lot. Allen Robinson will be a top 5 receiver and a good offense. David Montgomery will be a top 15 running back and a good offensive team. Nagy is horrible. Absolutely just a garbage coach. Just sad. Just sad.
As long as he doesn't see ghosts, he'll be okay.
Oh,
Who's
Sam
that?
Darnold.
Oh, Justin.
Yeah.
I don't want my starting quarterback saying that at a press conference for a game. Like, you threw a pick six. I seen Ghost on the field. Like, wait, that came out your mouth.
Yeah. You
You're
said
not
that
starting
out
for my
loud.
team no more if them words come out your mouth. Like,
Yeah.
but it's the Jets. The Jets.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
with your
we'll
team
see how
now,
that-
Adam. He's with your team now.
Don't remind me.
He might be good with the Panthers.
I think
I
he'll be
hope so.
decent. I
He
think
can't be
he'll
no worse than Teddy
okay.
Bridgewater.
Let's give Sam Darnold a chance. He had the worst head coach in the NFL in recent
And
times.
I've said
He's
if he,
worse than Hugh Jackson, which is saying
I
a
said
lot.
if he has a good year, that I will go out and buy his jersey. I've said that since the beginning, since he was signed with Carolina. I said if he has a decent year and they do well, I will go buy his jersey. Clint can back me up on that.
Yeah.
Define decent year.
500 or better,
Especially playoffs.
considering it's his first year, new system, new everything. But I think he might be all right with that. What is it, Brady? I think is the offensive coordinator, the dude from LSU. Is where he came from. Joe Brady, I think it is.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Sorry, I was waiting for a top 10 quarterback statement to come out.
So I'm not Durkin. I'm this tempted. I am this tempted because there's so many goddamn Baker Mayfield haters out there to say that Baker will be in the top 10 just so they can kiss my ass.
You have to wait till
He'll be in
Suds
the
is
top
here.
10.
You have to wait till Suds is here.
He will be in the top 10. Why be afraid to say it? All the
Because I don't want
Baker
to. I'm known as an albatross around sports teams, so I don't want to jinx it. That's why I don't ever pick him in fantasy.
Gotcha.
And then there's that guy up in that top left
All
corner
right,
over
George?
there.
Yeah.
See, look, he's biting his tongue.
He is.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm kind of mad because last year I made a comment during something that I said that if Baker did something or something that George had to keep his mouth shut, and it happened, so George couldn't say anything bad from here on out.
I am no longer allowed to talk bad about Baker Mayfield, and Shane hasn't gotten any Baker jerseys yet, but he is due to get them. And yes, there is a 2XL with my name on it, the first one he gets his hands on. So I said I will fulfill that bet. And yes, I cannot talk bad about the quarterback who must not be named.
And it's killing you. I know it is.
You should have printed out that Baker Mayfield apology form they had and made him sign it.
Oh, I can find it again.
No.
Good idea, Clint.
There's really
Yeah,
a
they had
form?
one. For all y'all
No.
Baker haters.
Yeah.
Hey, I draw the line there. I already said I promise I won't talk bad and I'll get the jersey. I'm not signing paperwork.
Start find
you
that
gotta-
paper.
but he-
Let's find
but
that.
my-
Let's find that.
My thing is I've always said Cleveland fans are not used to winning. So when they finally get a winning quarterback and a winning culture, they got to find the wrong in it. There's always one scapegoat that they got to pinpoint, and it's always got to be Baker, and it's got to go to the quarterback for whatever reason.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I feel like Browns fans are used to our quarterbacks being so bad. Now we have a good one.
Well, listen,
So they
when you have
They point the bad.
You've
When you
been
have
jaded for so long.
Well, when you have a dummy in a storefront that has over 25 quarterbacks' names on it, and then you finally get rid of it when Baker comes to town, you don't know how to act.
Well, if you guys don't mind me chiming in,
Go ahead.
From my perspective, if you think about the last outstanding quarterback, if I'm not mistaken, it's Bernie Kosar, right?
Be correct.
I got his jersey.
And so if you think about the culture in the Cleveland market, it's blue collar, kind of like Philadelphia, hardworking people, hardworking folks, right? And being a showboat is not something that they gravitate to. Like Bernie was a quiet guy. He was a leader, but he wasn't a showboat, right? So he went out and he produced, and they liked that, and he kind of fit into the personality of the city, right?
Correct.
Baker is kind of a little bit of a cocky, arrogant guy, which he should be because, hey, listen, he's a smaller guy, and he had faced it his whole career that he wasn't the typical 6'4" quarterback, right? So there are folks who probably don't personally like his personality, and they're letting that bleed over into whether or not he's a good quarterback. Some people don't know how to separate the two, right? And so I would say that could be a reason why some folks don't like him and aren't giving him the due that he deserves.
Well, the problem is that a lot of the Browns fans are also Buckeye fans, and they go back to when he planted the flag at the Ohio Stadium, so they still haven't let that go, is the problem. But they always tell me, being a Michigan fan, is that they won't hate Michigan players when they come to the Browns because they're on my team now. And why are you being a hypocrite? You can't do the same for Baker.
Yeah, the same way. I hated Baker because he planted the flag at Columbus. But as soon as he got drafted by the Browns, I don't care about that.
It's like an Etch-a-Sketch. You just erase it.
I'm a Buckeye fan, but I didn't have a problem with him doing it because it's like you gotta beat him. Like the problem I had with it was the backup quarterback from Oklahoma last year that came in and said he was gonna kick our asses and everything like that, and we blew them out. So when they put the backup in, they started chanting at the backup. Baker wasn't with Oklahoma at that time, but when they played Ohio State, I guess he felt to take that burden or something, and they won. He did the thing with the flag, so it's like I don't know, but
People also fail to realize too. Baker's been here what?
I ain't have a problem with it though.
This is his 4th year, and he's had what 3 different systems in 3 years.
Yeah, this will be the first time he'll have the same
consecutive years
in the system 2 years in a row.
Right. They got to, and people don't think about that.
Right. No, they don't, and that's why I think you're missing the boat on him this year.
Got to have consistency. You can't, you especially at the quarterback position, the offensive coordinator. I mean, we all know offense gets you to the Super Bowl, but the defense wins you the championship, right? So you got to have the right chemistry with the quarterback, the offensive coordinator, head coach. And if that's changing every year, that's a problem. Unless you have a Tom Brady or a Peyton Manning or a Warren Moon to go further back, unless you have those kind of quarterbacks who were born quarterbacks, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. Right.
Well, let's face it, if you have those quarterbacks, you're probably not changing systems 3 times in 4 years because your offensive coordinator isn't getting fired.
Yeah,
that would be correct.
Yeah. So
I think the Browns brought back their whole staff from last year.
Yeah, everyone came
offensive
back.
and defensive, everybody back.
Imagine being a rookie quarterback and getting Hugh Jackson, and then you follow that up with Freddie Kitchen. I mean, you talk about up against the wall. Holy crap! But enough Baker talk, I guess.
Well, Joe, chime in from a parent's perspective, a mom perspective. Consistency is what you want to teach your kids, right? So if the kids are all over the place, right?
That's true.
And so a lot of these principles and foundations in sports come from some of the things we learned from our parents, grandparents, in church, in school, and coaches kind of absorb those things and reintroduce them to the team, right? And so, whoever said it earlier, if you're changing quarterbacks or offensive coordinators and the whole entire system, you can't be competitive with teams that are in your division who are consistently making it to the playoffs.
Yeah. And much I hate to say it too, the better
I think it's not only in regard.
Go ahead, Joe.
It's not only in regard. It's not only in regard to consistency. It's also in regard to, I think, discipline. Players are necessarily disciplined. You want to get paid the big dollar, not willing to put in the work. I mean, we have players who are really have the mentality that they're celebrities and that celebrities get special treatment. But the reality is your talent only gets you so far. I mean, everybody in the NFL has some athletic ability and some talent. You really, to be a standout player, are the ones who are disciplined, who are motivated, and the offensive coordinators or whomever the coaches are. You can't do it alone. And if you're not willing to follow their guidance and respect the position that they're in, they're probably never going to be one of those players, in my opinion.
Yeah, great.
100%. Like I seen some today. I said Larry Fitzgerald is one of my favorite NFL players of all time. He was asked about why he ain't playing football right now. He said it. He said, "I'm not motivated to play right now. Why sign and take a roster spot from somebody that's motivated when I'm not motivated just because I'm Larry Fitzgerald?"
That's as honest an answer as you're gonna hear.
Yeah. Like respect. That's a class act answer right there.
Yeah, he always has been a class act.
Yeah, he has.
Always.
Well,
more tackles than drops. That's still crazy.
Well, before he went to Pitt, he went to the Valley Forge Military Academy here in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and he was outstanding. So he has a little bit of that discipline. You could tell in his personality, right? Yeah. He's been coached well, and he's had a great career. He really has. Probably a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt. I always respect him, not just because of his football career, but he carries himself so well. He's just a good person. Like if you read articles on him, he's a good person. He's not full of himself. He's not a diva. He's just a very down to earth guy. I always like that.
He's very what I call and what I explained to Bryce about being very professional. You know, you don't have to be, even though you're doing really good, especially teaching them at a young age, you don't have to be the showboat. If you're doing really good, and people compliment you, you tell them thank you very much, and keep yourself professional, as much as you possibly can. I said, yes, you get to enjoy it. I said, don't get me wrong. I says, but also be professional because you also want to be courteous to those around you. And especially in his case, when he's bowling, it's an individual sport most of the time. And, when he's bowling up against all these other kids and he's just going and going and going, and all these other kids aren't doing as well, he still conducts himself as professional, as I called it for him, so that he's not getting into his own head and the ego is not inflated. And he's very well grounded even to this point. And I'm very proud of that of him, and he does it all the time. So I am very. Larry Fitzgerald is just a spitting image of that, and that's pretty much how I hope that Bryce carries himself on even as he gets older, and he shares the same thing.
So the $1 million question
I love
is,
that.
George,
So,
can he
I'm
beat
the
you?
mother.
He has whooped me, Bodine.
Yeah, he can beat him.
You would not
Yeah, he
believe.
beats
That boy
George.
bowls.
He's good.
That boy, he will bowl 220s to 250s now.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah.
I'm not anywhere near that anymore. No, he blows the doors right off of me easily. Even in the no tap, he
Well,
has
I
put up
think
more
that
300s.
one of the greatest pieces of advice. I'm the mother of 3 sons, and one of my children aren't necessarily particularly athletic, but my sister's children are. Her children are star athletes, and I heard her tell her son once, who he was bragging about how good he is, and he really was. He was one of those 3D sport players, and he's a very talented athlete. And I heard her say to him, we don't tell people how good we are off the field. We show them while we're on the field. And I thought that was really a really significant piece of advice, and something to keep his ego in check. And I really applauded her as a mother. And I think that's the mentality. Some of the most impressive players, in my opinion. I think Derek Jeter was like that. He's boastful off the field. He just talent and speak for them on the field. And I really think that players like that are important in society in many ways.
Derek's a good example, but Derek came out of the womb an all-star, so, he had a lot of time to be groomed to be professional. It's the guys who, like me, didn't get a chance to start, wasn't an all-star player, but when they finally get an opportunity to show their talent, then they have to act like they've been there before. And so you may find it's really a small group of, if we want to put guys in that category of diva, there's a small group. And I think that small group, if you divide that small group in half of them was new to being the all-pro, the all-star, the man on the team, and then the other half were just naturally born, gifted, and they've been groomed to be a professional. So they were ready for the limelight to show.
All right. I have
Agreed.
next up the big news that came out today out of the Big Ten.
Oh, what are they doing?
COVID-19 related game cancellations in 21-22 will not be rescheduled, and the team that it falls upon, it will be ruled as a forfeit. If
So they're
both
following the NFL rules on that.
it will be
And-
it will be a no contest if both teams are unable.
Yeah, and I was going to say, at this point, most conferences have come up with something similar. The exception being, I believe, the SEC so far, because they don't want to accidentally, make Alabama forfeit a game.
Oh. Yeah.
How curious how many Michigan games will get canceled?
All the way up until the last one.
Does it really matter? I mean, you still got Harbaugh as your coach.
Shut up! You don't need to remind me, okay?
George, do you think we're going into the last one without a game before that?
Well, he said that's
don't
the
think
only
so.
one game he has to worry about. So, why have to play all the others? And you turn around, just wait and just play the last one. That's the one you have to worry about.
I know this is going to sound morbid, but his whole mentality, which, sorry, bro, you're like 6 years too freaking late with this whole. The day you step foot on campus, you should have been like Tressel and walked into the basketball game at halftime and put on your big boy khakis and said, 365 days from now, we're going to whoop Ohio State's ass or something like that, which he hasn't done yet. But it's like, you waited too long, bro, to like have this mentality, like for Ohio State. Like, they own you, and then you don't talk shit until you beat them. And you haven't proven you can do that yet. And I'm sorry to say it, but
I think Harbaugh said something. He said, we're going to beat Ohio State or we're
die
going to
trying.
die trying. And Ryan Day was like, well, rest in peace.
and that's where I was going with and that's where I was headed to with the morbid comment, is that could his words actually come true? That's about the only way we're going to get rid of his ass, is he would have to die.
The only thing that's dying is his career at Ohio State. That's
Well, and even Day was even interviewed, and he said, they asked him, "Can you say one nice thing about your rival?" And he didn't even hesitate. He didn't even flinch. He goes, "No." It was an instant answer. No.
At this point, I don't care. I honestly don't care about that kind of stuff. What I care about is the fact that he feels, to save his job, he now believes he has to beat Ohio State. That's what this is about. This is about Jim Harbaugh trying to keep his job.
What's scary is every coach that goes to either school, Ohio State or the one up north, that's all they care about. That is what you're measured by, except all of a sudden the school up north for Harbaugh, they've looked away. And I'm surprised by that. Because that's
if he beats
every coach for either school for as long as the rivalry's been alive.
Dave, if he beats Ohio State and nobody else, I still want him gone.
Say that again, Gold?
I said, if he beats Ohio State and nobody else, I still want him gone.
Yeah.
You may want him gone, but he's going to stay because he beat Ohio State.
For winning one game, I really don't think he will.
I'm shocked that they kept them. I really am.
Same.
I
know. You know what? I'm not. Because I know the university a bit too well. I'm not shocked that they kept him. I mean, he had the pedigree coming in. That's why they hired him. So, I mean, literally, what kind of pedigree are you going to find to replace him?
Yeah. Well, maybe this year he can get the win because Ohio State's quarterback situation is up in the air this year. There's a big unknown there. So
they've already announced a starter.
What's that?
They've already announced a starter.
Who?
CJ.
Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah. And yours coming out early, but I didn't expect him. He'll
hold on, Dave. Why does it even matter? You could have your first three quarterbacks get knocked out, and your fourth string will still come in and be better than the starter at Michigan.
I'm not that overconfident. I try to look at it even as big a fuck nut as I am, from a realistic point of view. But just saying, this is his best shot probably because CJ hasn't really shown any. I mean, we'll see what happens with him, but he reminds me more of a Craig Hurd Street or Kent than he does at Justin Field by far. So we'll see.
Bodine, you guys had, let's see, Villanova had Delaware, right, as your rivals?
Delaware is our rival. Since
How
we
did
brought
you
the
treat
program,
those?
well, Delaware is a little further away, distance wise, than say Temple. There's no one else really in the area. Penn has a good football team, but they're Ivy League. So within our Division One AA conference, it's Delaware, then it's Richmond. They're down the road, so to speak, in Virginia, and so it's a big rivalry. It's pretty big. I mean, it's the game. I don't know how much you guys know about football here in the Philadelphia market. Basketball rules in this market. Okay. Basketball rules. Penn State is 3.5 hours, further away. Temple is a different kind of program. Rutgers is in Jersey in the north, right? So the Eagles rule when it comes to football. The Eagles rule, and then basketball rules in this market. So the only time we sell our home games out on the campus at Villanova is if it's against Delaware. Other than that, we can't get people to come to our games. That's why we'll never step back up and go Division One like we were when Howie Long was there and that crew. So, but yeah, it's. I grew up with the Florida-Georgia game. You guys talk about rivalry, right? I grew up with the Florida-Georgia game. So you're talking about the world's largest. We have the moniker the world's largest cocktail party. Mm-hmm. So people come in a week early with their RVs. They park in downtown, in the downtown area, and it's a big party until the game starts, and then they continue to party up until a week after the game. So I grew up with that kind of rivalry. And so when I get to Villanova and I see we can't even fill our stands up, you have to find a way to get motivated.
Yeah, that's tough.
Shit, being a Michigan fan, you got to drink that much just to get through an Ohio State game now.
Dang.
I'd like to say I feel bad for you, but
no, you don't.
I'd be lying.
Hey, we got the right. We lost to a dude named Tim Biakabatupu, whatever his name is. Okay,
320 yards.
Yeah. I remember that.
That's Mr. Shingabiakabatuka.
I can't pronounce his last name. Oh, the Mr. in front of his name.
That's a Hall of Fame name for Chris Berman on ESPN.
Dude, I miss Berman and the way he used to call people's names.
So effortlessly too, though.
Never missed a beat. Didn't stumble upon nobody's name. Nothing.
He was the best.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. I mess up a bunch of names.
Yeah, they kind of get suds to pronounce names.
Yeah, I was gonna say, suds couldn't handle that. What's up, Scott? Scott's catching us up on Twitch here now.
Oh yeah, see the Twitch thing in the corner.
Yeah, so he must be at work or just coming home from work. Bodine, can you take us through a mindset? I mean, being that you former player and all, what is a mindset in the locker room? Give us a little bit of the locker room feel before a big rivalry game like that. I mean, this is some good insight to have you on. You get to give us that.
Yeah, I mean, it's everybody's. You guys know this. Everyone's personality is different, right? So even though you have the quarterback who's over through history automatically is bestowed the leader, right, of the team. You have leaders in the locker room, on the sideline. When you spend a lot of time together, you tend to learn who the leaders are, right? You learn who the leaders are in the cafeteria. You learn who the leaders are if enough of you are in the dorm together, right? So once you're in the locker room, you also learn who's the locker room presence, right? Who commands the locker room. And I, as a strong safety defensive back, we had usually it's either the middle linebacker or the strong safety is the leader on the 11 on the field, calling the plays, getting them in from the defensive coordinator. I was one of those guys that I sat at my locker. I was quiet. I wasn't the kind of guy that would bang my head on like they'd show on TV, remember the movie Replacements with Keanu Reeves? I wasn't one of those guys that were banging his head up against the locker and smacking guys in the helmet. And listen, there are guys like that. Offensive linemen and defensive linemen are absolutely crazy. Okay? These guys are nuts. And so you can get a locker room where a kicker who feels he has to establish himself as a leader because he is it's important to have a good kicker. You can lose games, right? So if you get a kicker who is trying to establish himself as a leader, he'll end up being that guy that walk around the locker room screaming, yelling, banging guys on the head, trying to get guys jacked up. And so I like to look and see who's positioning themselves as leaders. And then as you go through the season, you learn who's fake and who's real, right? So it's a great thing to see. You could even have a running back. Most running backs, to be honest, though, there's two types of running backs based on my experience. You've got a running back who is full of energy, very hyped, and loves to joke. And then you've got that running back like Barry Sanders who doesn't say a peep, right? Usually there's none in the middle. It's either one or the other.
Right.
And so you kind of feed off of the personalities of your teammates and learn, you basically build chemistry. You build some chemistry. But the locker room it's a great thing because how we are in the locker room amongst ourselves, once the coaching staff comes in, then we know it's time to adjust our what we're doing, our personality, our attention span, so to speak, because now we got to focus on the coaches. So it's constantly evolving, right? It's constantly evolving, full of emotion. And then once you get out on the field, the crowd can definitely have a positive effect on you as a team if they're supporting you. If they're not supporting you, then you have to rely on your teammates to help you get over the hump. I hope that was useful.
Yeah.
Like I said,
I was just going to say, being a hockey guy, I learned leadership by watching Steve Yzerman. Just quietest guy around, but he put that entire team on his back and said, "You're not going to outwork me, and you are going to follow me," and just did it. And I absolutely loved watching that growing up.
So the whole mentality of the walk lightly but carry the big stick kind of mentality.
Yeah.
It was literally, you will see how hard I work, and that's what I expect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he led by showing, not talking, basically. That's like.
And Zolt, I just got it, and I'm going to pull it up. Joe is going to be very excited to see this. This is her wide receiver that she's got in her draft.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Galore, yeah.
Yep. One hand grab. We're going to ignore the little push off.
Yeah, it's
I
all-
didn't see nothing.
I didn't see nothing. What are you talking about?
It's a nice subtle one, though. He didn't,
Hey, I missed that just like the refs missed that helmet to helmet in the Browns Chiefs game, but we won't go there.
Yeah, we won't go there. We're not bitter.
Not at all.
And even though, hey guys, even though he pushed off, the defensive back was already beat. He already had a step or two ahead of him. So, and I don't like to say that, but that was my hometown Jacksonville Jaguar defensive back. He was already beat. So that push didn't mean anything. And that's probably why the ref didn't throw the flag, because in his mind he's already beat.
Might be.
Yeah.
And for those following the quarterback controversy in New Orleans in the first quarter, Jameis is 9 of 10 for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Take 16 Winston?
I think it's going to be Jameis. He'll give him the better opportunity to win, I think. Taysom Hill's great as a gadget guy, and for those unique plays that fit him. Jameis, despite all his picks, is a guy who can get you 300 yards in a game and take you down the field and win it with 2 minutes.
You got to develop at some point.
So,
So we're going Winston or Mac Jones? Who you going?
Oh.
I'm kidding. You still got Tannehill too. He's another one that can throw 5 interceptions in a game, but get you 450 yards and like 4 touchdowns.
True.
We ain't talking about him. Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like he
that's
have another one.
Yeah, Fitzmagic.
Right.
He's got some nice weapons in Washington.
I like Fitzmagic this year. He's a nice.
I'm rooting for him.
I like Ryan Fitzpatrick. He like that one guy who in a movie, you just towards the end, he's just that one guy that just says some wise full shit, and you just like, wow. That's it. He's goofing off. He's doing other stuff ain't supposed to do. He's doing all the wrong thing, but then he's the one guy that just hits you with the one inside of information. You be like, thanks, man.
Yeah, but like I said, when I saw that meme, I'll never get that image out of my head. He's Conor McGregor's older alcoholic brother.
Well, Fitzmagic is from Harvard, and he has an extremely high IQ. So, and I like him. I like the guy. He's done well for himself coming out of that, that IQ factory and not a football factory. So, he's done pretty well for himself.
Zolt,
I mean, that's a great story.
Zolt, you are in a good mood tonight. You just pop.
What you paying me
I
for,
seen
man?
that.
My stats man is bringing the entertainment tonight.
Okay, and look at those stats though. The stats.
Wow.
First quarter, 5 receptions, 104 yards, 2 touchdowns. Winston the Callaway.
Wow.
Joe's
I'm on the MIAce's website right now.
No, well, does that mean Akers is going to take him like with one of his top 3 picks in the Dueling Aces draft?
Probably not.
Sure.
He won't know about it. He won't be watching this.
Or he's going to have to write it in anyway.
Well, yeah, I was going to say. And how lucky can he get?
No shit.
When he writes in at the time the backup kicker for the Cleveland Browns, who ends up winning the job.
Well, he would have never been in that situation if it wasn't for you, George.
I don't know what y'all are talking about.
Right.
What are the odds they bring in somebody else to take a look?
Who, though? I mean, who's out there? Like, I don't know who's going to be available kicker-wise.
There'll be a bunch of kickers cut here soon. I mean, wait a week. The big cut down's coming, so.
And I think they're happy with Chase. So I don't think they're going to have to worry about it.
I'm not heartbroken that Double Goiker's gone. So.
No, and it's just another stepping stone.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, George.
Yes, sir.
You guys may have talked about this in your previous show, but how does the extra game this year help or does it hurt with your fantasy football leagues? And then your end of the game rewards.
Well, it I had it. It was all nice and comfortable for last year. This year, the extra week is causing me a little bit of a headache. So I have not actually even started to think that process through just yet, because the way that the payout happens is for mine, besides the top 6 on where they finish in the regular season, and then there is a Super Bowl bonus that those top 6 play for. The bottom 4 play in a consolation bracket and will actually establish the first 4 picks of next year's draft. So, and it is infamously named for one of our other panelists, Suds, because he tried sandbagging one year because the rule at the time was whoever finished last got the first pick. Well, once he purposely picked up third-round people for his roster and went to try to start them all, that's when we knew we had to change up the rules and establish something else. So
your league rules and scoring system are harder to figure out than the presidential election system.
It's actually really easy. 1 point per yard. How much more difficult can it be?
Right.
So don't overthink it.
I was going to say, you not overthink. It's a point per yard, so it's very easy. All the yardage
if you start to try to break it
down. And 60 per touchdown. Come on.
Just go.
Literally, it's literally fantasy football on like NBA Jam steroids.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Adam, and he's a police siren, a flashing light, and a train away from being in West Virginia.
Literally.
And a band.
Going back to the 17th game question, my issue was, do I expand the benches a little bit just to give owners like an extra player or two? Because I'm just curious how far you get until you start seeing, we're going to rest a guy for a game. If you have your at week 5 bye week, and then suddenly you're in week 12, 13, 14, if I'm a head coach, I'm seriously considering I might have to sit a guy or two just to make sure we're okay.
I feel like
George is now thinking here.
Well, no, we hadn't. Zolt and I both being commissioners, we bounce things off of each other consistently, and that was one of the things of when this happens, and especially with how they straddled the bye weeks going all the way into week 13.
Yeah,
it was just like, wow, that is some serious time lag in between. But some guys get, like Zolt just said, sometimes the bye week is in week 5, but by week 13, it's like, well, you wish you had a bye week there. I looked at it and said, okay, well, as far as my playoff schedule, that changed. That got pushed back. We don't play the last week of the season. The Super Bowl week is week 17 now this year versus week 16. Right. It's been in the past. I've just pushed it out 1 week.
Right.
And of course, with COVID still, I still have I believe it's 6 to 8 reserve spots is still open for the bench, depending on however that has to work itself out, since that is still going to be a big piece of the NFL again this year. And everything else, it's going to be kind of one of those weird things of, like Zolt said, if people are going to change it up and all of a sudden you're going to find out, well, this guy is going to be, maybe there's a half. They're going to sit there and start taking halves off. If they're already up by 20 some points and it's the third quarter, don't be surprised if the guy's going to be benched for the rest of the game.
Yeah. I also think it's a year where any fantasy player, you better have balance on your team with that extra game thrown there. A lot of people I've seen draft will go heavy one way, thin the other. You need balance more than ever because of COVID. because of this extra game and what you guys were just talking about. And I wonder how many fantasy players will adjust to that. And especially like a running back where it is so thin. You got about 15 to 20 truly starting running backs, and the rest are really just crap.
Right.
So you better have a nice balance out there.
Well, and that's just the thing that I think is important. And, like Adam, for example, for mine, for the Michigan one, he's got Chubb and Hunt. That's not a bad thing because a lot of these teams now, and I think with this extra week, they are going to sit there and they're going to go two backs. Expect Jacksonville to do the same thing. James Robinson and ETN, they're going to be a 1-2 combination. Chubb and Hunt, that's a 1-2 combination. Damian Williams and Clyde Edwards, that's going to be a 1-2 combination. I'm really going to see a lot of the NFL, the teams who will figure it out or have already started to establish that it's going to be two big running backs. It'll be the old thunder and lightning, and you're going to need it because you decided no more one extra preseason. You decided to give it one more regular season, and that does drag it on, and especially when you've got a strong enough team that you're going to need that gas later on in the playoffs, and especially if you're on the bubble trying to get in, you want to make sure you've got gas in the tank for that wild card game.
I think I can see maybe that's Carolina could be another one because McCaffrey coming back from injury, number one, and then you go out and you draft Hubbard too. So you could see them being another team that could possibly fit into that scenario.
I feel like you're going to see a lot of leagues use 3 defenses this year on the 17 game schedule, because you're going to have a couple of game stretch where some defenses are really going to get burned or really get worn out and have to rest guys. You're going to see second stringers come in. So I think having that third viable defense is a really good option.
Third? I got to get a second first.
Well, I was about to piggyback off of Big D because he said you got to have balance. And again, I don't know anything about fantasy football, but what I do know is football is football. Mm-hmm. And if you're having that extra game and you took that extra preseason game away, if I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm thinking exactly what you guys were just talking about. How are we going to set up our offense? So if the offensive coordinators are trying to figure out how they're going to position themselves for the long run, that means the defense need to come out smoking. And that means you're going to throw the kitchen sink at everybody early on to try to get a jump start. That would be my mentality as a defensive player.
Well,
we'll see if that makes sense.
I think the other thing, though, is if you get, let's say you get the Browns or the Ravens get a couple of game lead on the division and you're in week 13, normally where you'd be resting players in the 16-week schedule. And now if you look at the Browns schedule from week 12 to week 16 is a brutal portion. They play the Ravens twice. They play the Chargers. They have an absolutely brutal schedule. Where are you going to get rest for your playoff starters? You're not. I think that what's going to happen is that unless you have an absolutely killer game on week 17 where it's a win and you're in scenario, I think that week 17 game is going to start turning into week 4 of the preseason.
Yeah, we got it right here. After
the Steelers twice, not the Ravens twice. My bad.
Yeah, no, it is the Ravens twice. After the Lions
is it?
game, it's
the Ravens a bye and a Ravens.
Ravens a bye week and a Ravens, and then Raiders, Packers, Steelers, Bengals.
Like they have an absolutely brutal schedule.
Yeah.
And that's that is the last 6 with that bye week in between both Ravens games.
So I mean, you got the bye week to rest, but like if you don't have if you don't have an opportunity to rest players because you have a couple of easy games in your schedule, then I can see that week 17 game turning into a week 4 preseason game where you've got, your second string and third string players out there, and that's not good football, and it's going to come back to bite the NFL eventually.
But I agree with you on that. That will be like a preseason game, but it already has been. Week 16 for the better teams. Maybe the starter played a quarter. They were always resting players, so.
But they're all divisional games now. The NFL did that on purpose. They slept with your last 2 games being divisional games, and those are going to be playoff implemented games.
Well, the Browns played the Steelers in week 17 or week 16 last year, and the Steelers came out trying to rest players, and the Browns blew them out of the water. The Browns played all their starters. Unless you are the Colts of the early 2000s or the Patriots of the last 20 years, where you're 13-3 going or 13-2 going into that last week, it's not going to matter. You're going to have early. Yeah, you're going to have teams playing. The Saints clinching early. You're going to have teams that will rest. And yes, I agree with you, BD. I wish that they would have shortened the schedule, to be honest with you. I would like to see the schedule go back to 14 games.
Yeah, but that will never happen. Too much money.
I know it won't. There's too much money to be. There's too much money to be lost or made in that scenario. But if you're truly worried about player health, then cutting out a preseason game and adding a regular season game doesn't do anything to.
Go ahead. I didn't want to.
It doesn't do anything to kind of forward that narrative.
Let's not fool anyone. I don't think the NFL is all that concerned with player health. They're trying to do safer things, but in the end, they're worried about their bottom line. I don't believe any of these big businesses that proclaim some of this.
I think
I just don't. I think if the NFL had their way, the players wouldn't revolt. They'd make it a 20-game season.
I could see that, but I think there's 2 leagues in American sport that actually care about the safety of its participants. I don't think baseball really cares. I honestly think it's the NHL and NASCAR are the 2 leagues that really care about the safety of its participants.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know enough about those 2. I'll trust you on that for sure.
So one of the drivers had a really nasty wreck at Talladega, which is a 2.5 mile super speedway. This past spring. They immediately implemented measures to make sure that car doesn't go airborne again. They added stiffening bars to the roll cage to make sure that the roll cage doesn't collapse around the driver. Newman's wreck last year, they added another bar to the anytime that there's a major wreck in NASCAR in the last 20 years, there have been immediate safety implications. The next week they're implemented. The NHL, they've gone to the full. I don't know if it's optional. I think it was optional last year, but I believe they've gone to the full face mask, the Lexan face mask on their helmets. They've implemented concussion protocols. There's a bunch of stuff that the NHL has done for the violent hits. NFL, they still thrive on it. I really don't think that they actually care about player safety. I agree with you.
I think, put it this way, I think they tried to make strides with the concussion protocols. I do think it's a mixed bag with the NFL. Sometimes I wonder if they're just doing things like that to appease the public and appease the outcriers. That's a differentiating thing for me is, do you really care, or are you doing this because of public opinion? What's your motivation really that lies behind it in the weeds, so to speak? And I don't know if I buy the NFL's motivation all the time. I hate to say it.
I mean, the NFL went on a smear campaign for 2 years because of the doctor out of Pittsburgh that was in the forefront of the CTE stuff, along with the institution out of Boston. And they made the movie about the guy, but they went on a public smear campaign for 2 years to make this guy look like a fraud when he wasn't. You can't tell me that you're for player safety when you do that.
And that's what I'm saying. What's the true motivation when they finally do something? Are you doing it because it's the right thing to do, or because of public pressure, peer pressure, other things that might pressure you? So,
I was going to say, right now with Bryce being his first year for varsity football, as he puts it, it's real football. Once he gets an interception, he gets to run this baby back. So, a parent actually even talked to me today because Bryce was also working on doing the kickoffs as well tonight. And one of the parents says he's just really not comfortable. He doesn't really think that they should be doing kickoffs at that level for 5th and 6th grade. I don't know if I had, really thought that point through as far as how all the players have to be spaced out, when these guys are all coming after, one of the kids on punt returns and everything else. Especially with the comments that Brett Favre made this week saying he feels that no kid under age 14 should even have a set of pads on. He said he thinks that they should be playing flag football all the way up to age 14.
I don't know, man. Them little 7 and 8 year olds running around with pads 3 sizes too big is adorable. Let's not deny that seeing some little kid run up the field and his helmet is like coming down his face because it doesn't fit him. It is adorable.
It is, but I do understand that parent's concern at that young age, and I don't have any kids that age; they're all grown and that. But everyone develops differently. Very few. You're still developing your body mass, your muscle, your reflexes. That is a young age for like doing kickoff things where it's high profile. I would be concerned. And I love football.
We've got Joanne. Joe, Mom, how do you feel about kids playing football?
I'm waiting to get it.
Yeah, I served it right up.
I don't like it. So I don't like it. So, I think that I've seen numerous kids in my own neighborhood who, and it's not necessarily. I think they look super cute in pads. I don't think they look as cute in a wheelchair. I don't think that I'm gonna forget his name. What was his name there? Aaron Hernandez. I think he's so cute either. But I think the real thing is, in my neighborhood, I've seen a couple of kids who are really stellar athletes at young ages, and they suffered a few concussions, and some of them really weren't even related to football or sports. One was he was on a hoverboard, and now he's out of, not only is out of competitive play and like going into 8th grade, he's really has to be monitored and watch himself for the rest of his life. So I think that there really is some truth and some value in holding them off. There's no reason they can't play sports, and soccer is a pretty rough game around here too. But they don't allow them to use their head to hit the soccer ball, and I think they should. I think 14, and you're having a professional player who's well respected in the game, saying that kids under 14. He's certainly more of an expert than I am. I think that there's a lot of validity in his opinion. And I think we should grab on and listen to his expertise.
I don't know about well respected. I mean, a few photographs while he played for the Jets kind of took that respect right out the window.
In certain circles.
But so the boy child plays hockey for the Cleveland chapter of the USA Youth Hockey. He's 8. They are not allowed to do any type of checking at all. It isn't if a player checks in his age group, he's 8U. It's an immediate ejection from the game. They're not allowed. I think it's 12U is when you're allowed to start doing forward checking, just front checks. You're not even allowed to come in on the side. Like side checks aren't until high school. The girl child, she plays soccer, and she's a sophomore. And last year, as a freshman, was the first year that they were allowed to use their head for headers and stuff. I think that's all well and good, and I understand the spirit of it, and I certainly understand the safety aspect, especially as a parent. But when you're trying to develop an athlete, and especially those kids, like I have no preconceived notion that my kid is ever going to play in the NHL or my daughter's going to play for women's soccer. It's to get him through, junior high and high school and maybe college if he wants to play there. If he goes to college, I'm not going to force it on him. But it's something I've always said that you need to play sports because it forces you to deal with people who are different than you that you may not like, and it prepares you for the real world because you're going to have to get along to get the job done. And I'm all for it. But I think that if you have those special kids who are genuine, true athletes who do have a future at the pro level, where do they get that skill set from that they're so desperately?
Yeah. Pump it, Bodine. Pump it.
But where are you
Bruiser, you need to buy my book. You need to, that's exactly what my book's about, brother.
Where do you get that skill set that you're desperately going to need later in life if you're one of those special kids,
Well, there are a lot of traveling teams these days, especially in baseball, I know, that cater to, and same for girls softball, boys baseball, whatever, that cater to those with that skill level that's above the others. Not so much in football. That's a tougher thing. There might be. I'm just not aware of any thing like that.
The football is the league. I think it's called League 46.
I think the point is that it shouldn't be the exception. It should be the rule.
I can't understand her. She's breaking up on my end.
Yeah, broke up.
I'm sorry. I think it shouldn't be the exception. I think it should be a standardized rule. If you have one kid, if that's the rule for all of youth soccer, then that should be the rule across the nation, so that there isn't a different standard rules for up and coming and developing. Great story you have special athletic ability. These kids that are coming, they can probably excel about the side checks or what have you in their field. About the Olympic diver who she was a gymnast. She did triple diving name until she was 20. Here she was in the Olympics, and she won the gold medal and broke the streak. Not the gold. I don't think she won the gold. She actually won the bronze, I believe. But she broke the diving streak for women. I think it was like a 27-year history or something like that. And she's an Olympic athlete at 29 and medaled, and she just took up the sport at 20. I don't think if we're delaying sports, they're still learning the fundamentals. They're still getting certainly all of the abilities. If it's play, then they can wait until 14 to start to develop those more moderate.
I'm not saying that 8-year-olds should be cross-checking and side-checking and front-checking and laying each other out like NHL defensemen. We don't need 9-year-olds with 4 teeth in their mouth. That's not what I'm saying at all. I fully understand the legislation being handed down by youth sports leagues and doing, 14 you can use the head in soccer, or at 16 you can do full out full out blitzes and football. Like, I understand that, and I'm all for it. What I'm saying is that you have kids, and we've all watched sports, been involved with sports. Most of the parents on this panel have probably coached at some point, had something to do with their kids' youth organizations. We've all seen that one or two special kids that know and are years ahead of their peers. And I feel like there needs to be something for those kids. And yeah, there's travel teams. Yeah, there's this, there's that. But you're going to tell me a kid from Maple Heights or East Cleveland or Euclid or way out in the Firelands where money is at a premium is going to be able to go on to a travel team that is probably a $2,000 a year team?
Yeah, they can get expensive. I understand what you're saying. No, it won't be available to every kid, at all.
Like right now, Bryce is 10, and he did make the tryout for a 12U baseball, but he's got the baseball thing, he's got the pitching thing because, of course, of his bowling arm. He can chuck the ball too pretty good.
You better teach him to pitch left-handed.
No, it's all right-handed. Yeah, it's all right-handed. Although he has all of a sudden developed an ability to be a switch hitter. That threw me for a loop. I'm not going to lie, but I was quite impressed. And I said, you just make sure that you're utilizing your form that you've been taught and coached, by his couple of coaches at T3, that he implements it from both sides of the plate. And he didn't do too shabby from the left side. So, but he can left and right. And I said, okay, well, you just got to remember that, these guys who you're pitching against, even though we did see several of the teams were literally almost pitching at the same speed that he was. And, it's somewhere between 48 and a 50. So it was really bizarre to see that. And Joe is now duplicated. How did we get double Joes? That's impressive.
All right.
It's like, okay, let me kick off that one.
Who's better than one?
That was good. That's a good trick, Joe. Well, teach me how to do that one. That's pretty good.
So like Adam and I frequent Sandusky Speedway, right? And then there's Lorain County Speedway, and then there's Barberton down the road from me. There's kids as young as 12 or 13 getting behind the wheel of a race car.
That's crazy.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
I mean, there's a type of car called a Legends car, right? Looks like a 34 Ford that you've just shrunk down, and now it's a clown car. It's quarter of the size. And there's 10 and 11-year-old kids touring the country racing those. Because the average age right now in the Xfinity series, which is it's like the AAA for NASCAR, the average age is 21.7, I think.
Wow.
Like, it's ridiculously young.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the opposite side of this argument is how young is too young to start trying to develop these kids into pro athletes. Like, at what point, as a parent or a coach or an administrator of a team, do you start taking away their childhood with practices and schedules?
We've already done that.
But you understand what I'm saying?
I do. No, completely. I mean, I got out of coaching Little League ball 20 years ago because the parents had already lost their minds then. And they were too difficult. I was coaching 10 and 12-year-olds. This was not a traveling team or anything. It was just kids playing hot stove ball during the summer, and everyone played on the team. The parents were acting like all of them were heading to the major leagues. And some were especially difficult. And I just told them, look, everyone gets to play. Yeah, some are better than others. They're 10 and 12. Let them just play and have fun. And when they get to high school, they can try out for the team and, go there, and parents were nuts then. I'd imagine it's worse now. I don't know. I'm not in that arena anymore.
It is nothing has changed. I've only been removed from the Y. I resigned 5 years ago now. Yeah, Bryce is 10. So yeah, 5 years ago. And I was working with the YMCA's almost for 30 years. And being a sports director and even coaching and officiating everything from basketball to flag football to soccer. I mean, you see the parents, one, trying to live vicariously through their kids.
Yep.
Two, it's a YMCA league where the format is everybody gets the chance to play, everybody gets the chance to learn, and everybody keeps forgetting the second part of learn. And even the coaches have to literally get a booklet, and you are given the booklet with instruction on how to help teach the kids so that they learn how to do things. You just don't sit there and tell the kid, okay, here's a basketball, bounce it up and down. There's teaching. You have to teach them to dribble left-handed, teach them dribble right-handed, teach them to dribble with their head up. Don't look down at the ball all the time. Look up. There's a lot involved. And these parents just go absolutely bonkers when you don't turn around and, oh, well, he plays much better than this kid does. He needs to be in all the time. No, that's why there's a substitution rule. After 4 minutes, guess what? You sub the kids out. You're not going to play the whole game. Everybody gets a fair shot and an equal opportunity. And these parents just go absolutely insane. And so, no, unfortunately, it's not.
I figured it got worse.
It doesn't. I mean, from the time I was 16 to the time I was 40, that's a long time to see the same thing just repeat itself over and over. It just does not change.
Well, there was
Bo's giving him a thumbs up. It's like, yeah, I don't think it will. And that's the thing is, I don't think it will ever change because that's just the way that some people are even brought up.
I know a way that it will change. It's a rather morbid way to think about it, but a 10 or 12-year-old kid dying on a practice field at a youth football event, that is how it's going to change, unfortunately. But there was a set of twins.
But that's already happened.
But
yeah, I was about to say that's already happened at least a couple of times, and that whole parent thing, that's all the entitlement parent issue of my kid is better than your kid. I don't care what you have to say. He could be the worst player on the team. The parent's always going to think my kid's better than your kid.
Well, there was a set of twins, twin girls that played on Madison on the girl child soccer team a couple of years ago, and they had no weekend. Friday nights was their rec game. Saturdays were travel games. And then Sunday was the Strongsville League game. And then, of course, they had practice two or three nights a week. And to me, that's insane. That's absolutely insane. Like, I would never force my child to go through that.
I just had to go through that with Bryce because the football program decided, they weren't playing in the fall due to COVID. So they put it in the spring, but he was already on travel baseball, plus still through his bowling league. We had bowling, baseball, and football 93 straight days.
I feel like you got to leave it up to the kid at that point.
Well, and he said no problem. I thought for sure he would totally be burned out, which is why I definitely thought when he said we weren't going to do football up until July 22nd, he decided, nope, I want to do it. Okay.
Well, good on him.
No fall baseball. There's no fall baseball, though. I told him, I said, it's going to be one or the other. So he said, well, they'll just do the football, no fall baseball. That'll be fine. And he's just doing that in the bowling thing. But it's like you're going to have days off because you're going to need to do your schoolwork.
Well,
and that was kind of the other weird thing.
It's not even
He
the
didn't skip a
schoolwork.
beat with school.
It's not even the schoolwork. It's the mental recharge. You know.
Yeah, you need a break.
You need
and
to.
school and
like,
all that. You need a break.
I work in a high. It's not necessarily a high stress field, but it is a high stress environment due to the person I work for and the amount of volume that we do at my work. It's an 8-person shop that churns out almost $4 million in net profit every year, when we should have 12 to 14 employees to handle that. You know what I mean? Like we do a ton of work.
Right.
I'm on vacation this week, and I'm not going anywhere. Like I'm working on my house, getting my kitchen done, and like we got our party this coming Saturday that Adam is too good to show up to.
That's because there's a draft to be upheld first.
George and Sean are coming after the draft. Come on out after the draft.
Yeah. He said it's running as late as possible, so there's no Card Shark Saturday night.
Well, the problem with that is by the time we get there, everybody's going to be half in a bag, and they're not going to be coherent enough to have conversations with.
Actually, that's really not all that true, because most of my drinking friends won't show up until 8 or 9 o'clock.
So that's when they'll just be getting started.
Yes. I will be half in the bag at 5 a.m. because that's when I have to go out and start the smoker for the pork shoulder.
Oh.
5 o'clock somewhere.
Right. AM or PM.
Correct.
There is nothing about it. Just 5 o'clock doesn't matter. AM or PM.
Yep, it doesn't specify AM or PM. But no, like I said, you're right.
Well, do you mind if I go back to that?
Go ahead, Joe.
No, you can't. You have to stay on topic.
Go ahead, Joe.
Well, I wanted to go back to that premise about what's going to change when we have a child die on the field, and that's already happened. But I think so much of it, you're exactly right, links back to the parents and sometimes the coaches. I mean, did you see that the news article that came out? I think it came out last week about the 2 high school coaches who had the teenage basketball player, the teenage girl running the bleachers and stroke. They've been charged with murder. I mean, that's a whole flip side to it. The pressure on the coaches too to produce collegiate level and national athletes from kids. What do you think about that aspect?
I think American, with the popularity of the women's and men's basketball tournaments for college and college football and pro football, I think there has been such a premium placed on athletics in this country. And it goes back a ways, but notice it more so now, that I think people have lost the plot on it.
We've lost our minds.
Yeah, they lost the plot. I really think that people have lost the plot on what the position of athletics in this country are supposed to be. You know, the NCAA refers to college students mockingly as student athletes. We know they're not students. We know the guys at Ohio State and Texas and USC and Florida and LSU and those schools. The big one, the top 1% or 2% that are going to play in the NFL don't have to worry about their classes. They really don't. You know, the basketball one and done rule pretty much eliminated even having to be academically eligible to play.
And then they make that rule just because of the fact everybody was leaving high school. Going straight to the league.
They made the one and done rule, but then they just hamstrung universities. I think we need to place the onus, and this goes back to Brian Fitzpatrick. Look at that. I can do a callback on this. Going to Harvard. He's a smart guy. he's a very analytical guy. Like, I think we would produce better athletes if we put a better emphasis on academics first.
And that, I agree with that, because I even said, and Bodine, you can correct me if I'm misspeaking here, but even though your level on what you're playing in college, your development, even though they're saying your body development, oh, you're fine, you're good at college, your body's still technically even developing up even through your junior and senior years. And then once you get into that pro level at 24, 25, then you might be at a certain plateau, but then there's still even more. The game speed and keeping up with the physical attributes of that next level is a whole other ball game. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. I like to tell people I was slow to develop. I'm a slow learner, but a quick study. And because there are so many different levels of competition, right? If we're talking about, Penn State, Ohio State, state schools versus private schools versus Ivy League schools, right? Then you're talking about three different scenarios in terms of the value that the leadership places on education, right? So Villanova is a private Irish Italian Catholic school, right? Their value that they put on education is obviously at a higher level than traditional state schools. But then the Ivy League schools value their education higher than the Catholic schools, right? So
you have there's a whole other category that you're missing, and that's the military academies. That's VMI and Army and Navy and the Air Force Academy and the Naval Academy. You know what I mean? Like, there's those schools too, and you're not.
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't even think about that. I was going to say, I didn't even think about that, Bruiser. That's one group I didn't even think of either.
And guess what? Villanova is right in the center of that, because we have an outstanding ROTC program where guys come from our program and go into the Navy or Marines, right? So we're kind of actually part of that, even in that aspect of the educational process. So he's right.
Villanova's in Philly, right?
In the suburbs, yes.
Yeah. So you're right there between Annapolis and West Point. Like, you're right in the middle of that anyway.
Oh, yeah. Early on, before you came on, we have the Valley Forge Military Academy for younger kids down the street from us. So that's where Fitzgerald went for 2 years before he went to Pittsburgh.
And their emphasis is on teamwork, because of what they're going to have to do when they get out of those military academies. You have to work with your fellow soldier. So that's almost like a perfect model. You're athletics, but hell, you're learning how to work with that guy that you may not like, because he may save your life one day. And it's weird to see. It's weird to see kids who are, and they are kids. I mean, I'm gonna be 40 next year. I'm not nearly as old as Methuselah up there up in the left-hand corner.
I think I got him by a couple of years.
I was gonna say Doug's got me by a few more years. So,
but I think Dave's got us both, though.
But you've got these kids who are 18 and 19 and 20, and if you think about back to the dumb things you did at that age, and you have boosters in front of them handing them envelopes, and you have agents coming up behind them whispering in their ear, and you have liaisons from pro teams and pro scouts talking to them going, you should do this and you should do that. I feel like there really needs to be some sort of protection for these kids. Not to say that it doesn't exist already, but it needs to be better. I see Bo shaking his head a lot.
Oh no! I agree. The only thing the only thing I'll say to that is the gate's already open. There's no, and a lot of the points that everybody has chimed in on is correct. All those things can be true. The problem is that how are we going to pull people together and make that decision to do those things that we're discussing? The chances are it's never going to happen. We can want and wish all we want, but until the powers that be say we're going to change these things where kids don't play tackle football, don't do checks, and everybody's on the same page, but there's the chances of everybody in America getting on the same page, we all know is never going to happen because there are so many parents out there, you guys just talked about it, that are so selfish and they're living vicariously through their kids. They're not going to want to follow the rules, right? And then you got bad actors out there that's not going to want to follow the rules. So all we can do is try our best for the powers that be that make those rules to come up with a plan as best they can where people can say, okay, I'm not going to touch it. But we are so far gone and the money is so powerful, right? It's tough. So we gotta live with what we got, right? You gotta dance with the person that brought you to the game, right?
Because you can't fight the money and you can't fight the politics, and that's in every aspect of our lives in America. Whether it's
I feel like
sports on up, it's there. And unfortunately, we as Americans are getting dumber every year. We don't think for ourselves. We let media control us.
Idiocracy.
Idiocracy was a documentary made years ago, ahead of its time. If you haven't seen it, watch it. Billy Baldwin's in it. And these guys go 500 years in the future. They're dumb idiots, like Dumb and Dumber. And then they're the smartest people on the planet. I feel like we're heading that way. And we spend so much time fighting against ourselves for no good reasons. Nothing gets accomplished. Nothing gets truly done. Little changes here and there, but we're not where we should be as a human race.
I feel like we were given the opportunity at a reset button in 2020 with all of the shutdowns and the sports, having to stop. I feel like we were given the opportunity at a reset button then to help remove some of the pork and some of the corruption and filler that has permeated its way not only into professional sports but youth sports. And everybody just said, "Forget it. We're not going to worry about it." I mean, we were talking about it in our group chat today. Was them putting the sponsor logos on NHL and MLB uniforms, and soccer, the Premier League, a bunch of the top leagues in Europe, they've always had, like Fly Emirates on the front of their jersey or sponsorships like that.
Oh.
And I feel like if you start going down that road, you're going to end up in a situation that NASCAR was in which NASCAR went public and then lost itself and had to buy back all of the shares, and now Geico, Xfinity, and Coca-Cola collectively own the sanctioning body of NASCAR. NASCAR doesn't even own itself anymore. because of how much money that they bled out trying to attract newer and bigger title sponsors. You know, you've got Soldier Field is no longer Soldier Field. I forget the name of it. You had old Municipal Stadium.
Well, even the Cleveland Browns Stadium went to First Energy Stadium. You couldn't even keep it Cleveland Browns Stadium for 10 years.
It's Cleveland Browns. What was it? It was for a while there. It was Cleveland Browns Stadium at First Energy Field or something like that.
Right.
You know, like all these. There has to be a way. There has to be some sort of common ground, common denominator that people can agree on to start trying to remove even a little bit of the corporate money.
You'd have to eliminate greed, and that'll never happen.
I feel you, but for the sake of the sake of the argument, I feel like there is a way that you could do it eventually.
I think we would have to evolve as a human race a lot more. And we're so far away from that. I hate to say it like that. Not that there's not good people in the world, just we're so hung up on so many trivial things. And politics and power controlling everything. Money controls everything.
Talk about trivial things, a 3x5 piece of cloth that goes right here.
Yeah. I mean, but
his eyes got Bo's eyes got as big as saucer plates.
Well, listen, I was about to say that if your blood's boiling based on sponsorships, you know what just happened a couple of months ago? They ruled that college athletes can now start making money off of their likeness and jerseys.
And I think that that's a good thing, to be honest with you. I feel that that's a good thing because I think that a lot of these schools take advantage of these kids. You know, and I'll use an example. There was a kid at Akron U that got penalized and ruled ineligible for a season because his brother worked at the bookstore. The kid's brother wasn't a student. All he was doing was working at the bookstore. And they had overstock of this kid's jersey, and his brother grabbed one because the kid that was going to Akron U was the first kid from his family to go to college and actually made the football team. Kid got ruled ineligible for the season because he was given his own jersey as a memento for, and I feel like that's entirely and utterly wrong. You know, you got the NCAA football games that made millions upon hundreds of millions of dollars. It's player number 25. It's player number 5 for Texas. It's player number 10 for USC. We all know who they are. They look just like them in the video game. But then you can go through and you can automate the rosters and it'll auto-populate a list of real names, and then the announcers will say those real names. It might not be the correct name. Reggie Bush's name might be Cliff Anderson, but you know that's Reggie Bush running down the field. You knew that was
been programmed that way. Yep.
Yeah, you knew it was Brady Quinn throwing the ball for Notre Dame. Like, you knew those things. And some of the criteria for student athletes, the athletes were given $30 for weekend meals. Tell me an offensive lineman in the country, whether you play Division 1, 1AA, Division 2, Division 4, it doesn't matter. Tell me a lineman in this country that's going to eat for $30 on a weekend.
$30 on a weekend? That's one meal.
That's
exactly.
That's Friday night.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Friday night.
Yeah, that's a per diem that should have, if anything, we used to get 25, and I was playing in the mid 80s. So if they're getting 30, that's nothing.
That was circa 2015. Was $30.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Oh.
You know, you were allowed a bagel with the option of cream cheese, a bowl of cereal, and an egg for breakfast from the Commons for free. Like,
Well, you know what I think? I think what could change, the more and more I was thinking about it, what could possibly move us in the right direction is when you have investigative reporters and law, and people may not like lawyers, but when the March Madness happened, you guys remember March Madness, and they set up the fitness room for the guys and the fitness room for the gals, and the gals had basically nothing in the fitness room, and the guys had everything. Well, guess what they did?
That showed it off.
Yeah, they had a private law firm do an investigation, and they came up with the contract that the NCAA has with the networks is from 25 years ago. No wonder the female athletic programs aren't making any money, because it wasn't even renegotiated. So now they have to renegotiate the contract. The revenue is going to increase, right? Which means the women's programs are now going to get more money. They still won't be equal to the guys. That's true. It won't be equal to the guys, but at least they're getting more. So in other words, it's going to take an effort and action and people calling out like what you're doing, calling out to people who will listen, who have the ability to make changes, right? So you've got to get in front of somebody that can make some changes and put your case down and say, hey, let's do this. And you'll find more people will join you.
Listen, I'm just a chubby schmuck from Cleveland with a microphone and a loud mouth. Like that's all I am.
And you have a platform to let it fly.
It all starts with a platform, baby. You got to start somewhere.
I guess it's how I was raised and how I was brought up. I always tend to lean more towards the side of optimism on things. And I think that the playing field should be leveled. There's that commercial for New Hampshire University, and there's a quote in it, and I think it's so true. The world we live in equally distributes talent, but it does not equally distribute opportunity to achieve that talent. And I feel like we need to start leveling the playing field to give those opportunities to, why does it have to cost $2,000 to play a season of travel baseball on a competitive league? Why does it have to, why do you have to take your 8th grader and get him into the AAU just for him to get a look at a basketball tournament? You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to do those things. You should be able to go play on your local sports teams with your local teams and work your way up through junior high and high school, and then you get a look in your sophomore and junior and senior years. And I feel like we've gone too far forward too fast, and maybe now is the time to take a step back and go back to the way things used to be a little bit. You know what I mean? The simplicity is what I mean, is what I'm going at.
No, and I get you. I agree with you. I think with all the access of social media, that simplicity will be hard to ever get back in some ways. Kids grow up, I think, way too quick. They're exposed to way too much, way too early. I think back when I was a kid, it was the sandlot. I was worried about finding a baseball so we could go find a dirt field to play ball. And it's just a different time and era. And I would love to see simplicity. But I don't think we'll ever have it again. I wish we would.
I mean,
I'm not going to lie to you. If it wasn't for the fact that I made a decision to turn around and go to the Y when I was 16 and ended up working for them, just walking into a gym and helping a guy out teaching a gym class. If I didn't go through what I did with the YMCA for 27 years and learned what I did about, dealing with patients with kids and even the adults, and then going through, books or even videos and being educated myself on, just like Bruiser said, the simplicity of a lot of things. I can guarantee you that without any of that, I don't think I would. I mean, I'd probably figure out parenting, but I'm not going to lie to you that a lot of what I had learned through working at the Y, definitely looking at how other parents were treating their kids from ages 3 to 18. And I saw all the different aspects of how different people parented their kids. And over 27 years, 600 to 700 kids a year, that is a lot of parenting I've seen in that amount of time before I became a parent. And to say that I believe in my heart that I am a better parent because of that, I will say that that statement is true.
If you want a true test of patience as a parent, go be a youth hockey coach for kids under 9 for an afternoon. Those people are saints. Saints.
I've had plenty of soccer and flag football for 3 to 5-year-olds, and when you've literally got 40 of them running around you all at the same time, and you only had a staff of 4.
Oh yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah, it was mayhem in a hurry. I definitely recruited about 15 more parents real fast.
My son's hockey coach. My son's hockey coach is a special ed teacher. That's her job. And my son has ADHD and he's bad with it. And she really helps him. Like it's like I think the people that are getting into youth coaching now are the types that are going to be able to deal with the children who have some issues. The people that are getting into youth coaching now.
Who's got a replay going?
I'm gonna blame Joe.
That are going to be able to deal. Oh, her and Doug both muted at the same time.
And Dave was talking about the. Sorry, Zolt. I just want to. Dave was talking about the internet.
I was just going to show. Bruiser, I'm sorry to interrupt. I told George before I got a hard out at 10.
Oh,
and I just wanted to say, Bodine and Joe, thank you. This has been a fascinating show compared to our regular stuff. This has been absolutely great. I thank you very much. Unfortunately, I gotta go.
A selfish plug. I hope you pick up my book.
I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna buy it on Friday.
It's in the cart.
I am double. I got my phone on and I have this on because I don't want to miss a minute of it, and I hear much better on the phone.
So Dee was talking about kids growing up too fast on the internet. Listen, I'll be 40 in April, and I grew up in the fledgling days of the internet where you had to earn your stripes on there. Spent 6 hours trying to download a picture of what you thought was boobies and just ended up being a naked dude.
At AOL, it'll get you every time.
Right.
We were doing so good.
Wow.
And it didn't even take
back before that with bulletin boards.
Which, by the way, Suds did try to turn around and jump in, but due to the nice little block only lets in 9, somebody couldn't get in the door.
We had listen. It was a far more intellectual conversation tonight than if Suds were here.
Well, it only lets in 9. And fantasy football draft is going to be really interesting, since how there's 10 teams.
No, because Leo will actually be here in person with me.
And this show tonight would qualify for a Mensa rating because Akers isn't here.
It's interesting how the two of them both aren't here.
Well, there are acres
had a
in the chat today.
fantastic
It's a
show.
good thing.
Oh,
Well, hey, listen, I gotta cut out too because I got some things I gotta do and get ready for tomorrow.
Yep.
But hey, listen, I am. Thank you for the invite. Hey, if any of the guys do pick up the book and read it, I'm more than welcome to come back. If you'll invite me, we can talk about what you read, because a lot of the things, Bruiser, a lot of the things that we discussed tonight, a lot of it's in the book. My book is 7 chapters, 42 topics. Yes, it's centered around diversity and inclusion, but it's a positive book. Joe will tell you she read the whole thing, and so that's how we.
I have it in my cart. I'm gonna pick it up Friday. I'm gonna read it. I would love to have you back because I do have some questions about racial diversity, inclusion in sports, and how we can kind of eliminate the redlining that has happened in sports, especially in impoverished Black neighborhoods around large cities that keep them out of the high dollar sports that the white kids get into.
And in fact, I'll even set that up because that can even be set up as as our spinoff, the Year Out of Bounds episode. So we can even purposely set that up, Bruiser. And that is an excellent idea.
Yep.
It was a pleasure having you guys both on.
Yeah,
I appreciate
and
it.
we also talk.
Go ahead,
We
Joe.
also talk about that at things like this every Wednesday night, right? So you can hop on our show and we field the questions and we talk about these topics every week.
One podcast is enough for me, thank you.
Yes. No, Bodine, Joe, please plug. Please.
Go ahead, Joe.
We're at the Coast Entertainment Network, and so we called the Bo and Joe show, and we talk about these things every week. I have a much better connection. So please hop on, and every Wednesday night we're on at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and this is exactly what we talk about. The kind of Bruiser, you'd be perfect for our show. We talk about exactly the kind of things that you brought up all night. So it really propelled us forward, and it's the kind of conversation we love.
And don't hold it against me that I graduated from Villanova, because I'm a country boy. My family's from Mobile, Alabama, and I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. So don't hold it against me that I graduated from
I'm not going to hold it
Nova.
against you at all. Listen, I have spent the majority of my first day of vacation de-skunking myself and my dog in my house.
And all this coming back from MIS NASCAR race yesterday.
I went up to Michigan for the NASCAR race yesterday, and we got home by 11:30, and my wife and I fell asleep on the couch after putting the kids to bed. At 3:40, the dog started doing a tap dance because she had to pee because she's old and her bladder is little, and I let her out. And she ran out in the front yard and peed, and then she went around the corner where the tree is, and I saw something scurry in the grass, and she chased after it, and I yelled no, and it was too late.
Too late.
It was too late. It got her all up under her mouth and right in her face.
Oh, Jesus.
And I got it on the arm and the leg. It got her so heavy it was dripping off her fur, and she's a beagle mix, so she has the double coat.
Oh yeah.
She got the water fur underneath. Apparently, I yelled the phrase "motherfucker" so loud my wife heard it inside the house from the other side of the house. And she came to the front door and looked at my dog and went, "You dummy." So at 4 a.m. in my little bathroom, it was me trying to bathe myself and the dog with apple cider vinegar and Dawn dish soap. It has taken 3 baths for the dog and 2 showers for me, scented candles and baking soda and all kinds of shit. Try to get the smell out of the house. And we have our housewarming party on Saturday. Like this Saturday is our housewarming party. And I'm just hoping that the smell is so bad.
You better pray that the rain holds off Saturday.
I would really like. The new rule is you cannot let her out of the house at night now without a leash and her harness on, because I'm not doing that again.
Geez. Like I said, I am so glad that I happened to. I still don't know how I popped across your show 3 weeks ago, but I am so glad that I did. I am very glad that you guys were able to join us tonight. Thank you very, very much for doing that. I really do appreciate it. I hope you both have had a fun time as much as we absolutely have had having you.
Yeah.
Mr. Manning as well. Thank you. And I know that I believe we will hopefully also see you next week with your counterpart, Sean, as well, going over the dynasty and the intricacies of the fantasy football next week.
Love to do that. Contribute whenever.
So
Well,
thank you guys.
It's a pleasure. Yep, pleasure meeting you all, guys. Absolutely.
Everybody.
Right. Good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
Take it easy.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Take it easy.
Thank you very, very
Bye,
much. And let me get this baby out. Where's my exit? Uh-oh. Where's our exit? Uh-oh. There it is.